I'm Logan. I'm 19 years old and just started studying medicine in New York City. Originally from Texas, my parents live in Dallas where my dad works as a surgeon at a university hospital, and my mom takes care of our home. After finishing high school, I moved to New York 4 months ago to live on my own. I worked hard and got into medical school in July, inspired by my dad. But I haven't been able to enjoy typical college life. I wanted to make friends, join clubs, and have fun, but money has been tight. My parents pay my tuition, but I have to handle all my other expenses. Apart from classes, I've taken on jobs like tutoring, event staffing, and working at a bar. Even with these jobs, it's been hard to make ends meet each month with rent and living costs. I often switch between jobs to fit my schedule and work mostly on weekends. It's been tough both mentally and physically. I get tired in class, and when I come home late, I struggle to find the energy to study. I'm worried I might have to repeat the year because I'm falling behind in my classes. If things keep going like this, I won't be able to focus on my studies, which are supposed to be my main priority. I felt anxious and desperate, so I called my mom to ask for some financial help, even if it was just a little. My dad is rarely home because of his busy job, so my mom handles the finances. Even though my dad earns a good income, my mom said they didn't have extra money and that paying for my tuition was already hard, so they couldn't send me any more money. With that answer, I felt stuck. Most of my friends who live on their own get financial help from their parents, and I envied them. But I decided to keep working hard at my jobs. When midterm exams came, I hadn't studied enough, and as expected, I had to take retests. I managed to finish the retests at the beginning of August, and then started my summer vacation. I plan to work as many jobs as I can during the long break to earn as much money as possible. After the summer break, I plan to focus more on my studies, so I'm going to reduce my work shifts. This means I need to save even more money, so I'll cut back on my living expenses. For meals, I'll save by eating instant noodles, bread, and discounted pre-packaged meals. Whenever I need to go somewhere, I'll use my bike to avoid transportation costs. I grew up in a well-off family, so I never had to worry about money before. I never expected to live in such poverty after moving. It was a very busy time, but I kept in touch with a college friend through text messages. Seeing their fun photos made me sad, realizing how different life could be for students at the same university. My friends often invited me out, but I had to decline because I didn't have the money or time. "I'll drive, let's go somewhere that doesn't cost anything," one of my classmates messaged me. "Nah, I'm working every day plus. I'm heading back home for the holiday season, so I won't be around," I replied. "Are you sure you're okay? You always seem tired at school, and I think you're working too much," my friend expressed concern. "I've got the physical stamina and I need to earn my living expenses. Let's meet up once school starts again," I responded. With that, I headed to the bar where I work. But shortly after, something happened. I collapsed during my shift. It was a busy Friday with lots of customers and orders, and while I was carrying drinks, I felt dizzy. I don't remember much after that, and when I woke up, I was in a hospital. The doctor told me I collapsed due to exhaustion and malnutrition. I received IV fluids and was allowed to go home the same day. I immediately called my boss at the bar to apologize. My boss told me that after I collapsed, he called my name, but I was too out of it to respond, so he called an ambulance right away. He had also contacted my parents. "You've been taking a lot of shifts, and I relied too much on that. Sorry about that. I want you to rest easy for the rest of the month," my boss said. That meant a cut in my income. Riding the subway home from the hospital, I wondered if I should take on more tutoring jobs. I felt lost. I was supposed to work at the bar the next day, but now I had the day off. I decided to stay in bed and rest. Checking my phone, I saw a message from my friend that I had missed while I was unconscious. I replied and explained why I hadn't answered earlier. After learning about my situation, my friend decided to come over. He bought groceries and made spaghetti for me. While eating the meal he had kindly prepared, we talked about the costs of living alone. When I mentioned that I wasn't receiving any financial support from home, my friend was surprised. "That's why you've been working so hard? Your dad's a doctor. You should be getting some help." I asked Mom, and she said they're barely managing with just my tuition. "Really? But you're an only child, right? Maybe if you ask again, they could send a little support." Mom said even a small amount of support was out of the question. "No way, that doesn't make sense. I hate to say this, but maybe your dad is sick and can't work," my friend suggested. I started thinking it over. My dad is a doctor and used to drive a luxury car. Our house is in an upscale neighborhood, and I went to private schools my whole life. So why would Mom suddenly say they have no money? I became worried. I immediately messaged my mom, "Are you both okay?" She replied after a while, "We're fine," but I couldn't relax. I thought maybe they were just saying that to keep me from worrying. Since I had planned to go home for the holidays, I decided I would talk to my parents about this in person. After thanking my friend, he said, "I'll be waiting for some souvenirs." I felt grateful to have such a friend. The holiday season came, and I took the cheapest flight I could find back home. I could only stay for one night and a day because of my job, but I was looking forward to it. When I arrived, my parents greeted me at the door. My dad seemed surprised when he saw me. "You've lost a lot of weight, really," he remarked. I hadn't noticed myself, but apparently I looked quite different. My mom was also taken aback and fell silent. For lunch, my mom had prepared salad, soup, and chicken wings. For the first time in a long while, the three of us sat down to eat together. As soon as we sat down, my dad looked worried and asked, "You look thinner. Are you eating properly?" I told him the truth. "Not really. It's been a while since I had such a luxurious meal." "What do you usually eat?" my dad inquired. "Instant noodles, bread, and sometimes discounted pre-packed meals." "What about the cafeteria food?" he asked. "The cafeteria is too expensive for me." "Is it that expensive?" he questioned. "It's about $5 or so," I replied. Hearing that, my dad looked puzzled. "Is the money I've been sending enough for you?" I was confused and responded, "Huh? I haven't been getting any money." My dad was shocked. "What do you mean? So you haven't received any money for the past 4 months?" "I haven't received any. Have you really been sending money?" "I had asked your mom to transfer $2,000 every month into your account." "Really?" I was surprised. "Mom told me that your finances were tight and that she couldn't afford to send any money." Dad looked confused. "We have enough money. What's happening?" Dad immediately asked Mom, "Paisley, have you been sending money to Logan like you're supposed to?" Mom looked down without saying anything. I started to worry. Maybe Dad got sick and couldn't work, so that's why I wasn't getting any money. "No, I've been working as usual," Dad said. "That's good to hear," I said, feeling a bit better. "But then why didn't I get any money?" I was so confused. "Paisley, what's going on?" Dad asked again. Mom still stayed silent and wouldn't look at us. "Please, don't stay quiet. Can you explain?" Dad asked again. Finally, Mom said softly, "I haven't sent any money." "What? You haven't sent any money to Logan," she admitted. Both Dad and I were shocked. "What? Why not?" Dad asked, surprised. "There are just too many things we need to pay for," Mom started explaining. "Isn't our home loan already paid off?" Realizing she couldn't hide it any longer, Mom revealed, "I've been keeping the money for myself." I was shocked. I read online that medical students can earn more than regular students by tutoring, so I thought you'd manage. I asked for some money, even a little, but I didn't realize you were struggling that much, Mom continued calmly. "There was a call from Logan's work recently, saying you collapsed from overwork," Dad interjected. "And I noticed today how much weight you've lost." "What? Logan collapsed? What happened?" It seemed my dad hadn't heard about this before. I explained, "Yeah, but it wasn't serious." "Paisley, why didn't you tell me?" "I'm sorry, I was scared you'd find out I wasn't sending the money," my mom replied, and my dad was furious to hear this. "This is unbelievable. Logan had to work until he collapsed because he didn't have any money." "I didn't mean any harm," my mom said, showing no signs of guilt. "What have you been using all the money for?" my dad asked my mom directly. After a short pause, she spoke up. "Actually, I've accumulated some debts." "What?" It was shocking to hear that from her, who always seemed to manage our household finances so well, even tending to the garden flowers. The money went towards paying off my debts. "Debts? How much do you owe?" my dad asked, looking incredulous. Mom, still avoiding eye contact, said softly, "About $100,000. $100,000? I couldn't believe it. My dad sighed heavily. "How did you accumulate so much debt?" "I got involved in gambling," she admitted. "I ended up with gambling debts without your knowledge." "Why would you even start something like that?" my dad asked, clearly dismayed, holding his head in his hands. "About 2 years ago, I started gambling just to pass the time. I won some money, and it felt good initially. I only used small amounts, but going to the casino became a habit, and I started betting more and more. I couldn't stop, and that's how it all added up to that amount." I had never gambled, so I couldn't understand why she couldn't stop. "Yes, I kept trying to win back what I lost, but I ended up losing more than winning. I even used some of our savings." "So you've spent more than just the debt amount?" my dad exclaimed at my mom. "How much of our savings did you use?" "About $30,000. I stopped taking more because I was afraid you'd find out." She looked like she was on the verge of tears. "If you had talked to me about it sooner, maybe we could have handled it better. With that amount, you could have worked part-time and paid it back bit by bit, right?" my dad suggested. When he said this, she yelled back, "I absolutely refuse to work part-time." "Face reality. You're the one who got into this debt," he said, visibly angry. I've been a stay-at-home mom for so long, I can't start working now. That's why I turned to payday lenders. Her selfish reasoning shocked me. Then the interest started piling up, and the debt kept growing. I got involved with multiple lenders, and now I can't keep up with any payments. It's overwhelming, my dad sighed heavily. Are you still gambling, even in this situation? He asked. Yes, I don't see any other way. That's why I hoped you would pay off the debt for me, she said desperately. Really? My mom stood up, her face lighting up with hope. I knew you would help me. He seemed moved, but things didn't turn out as she had hoped. But this is your severance. Let's get a divorce. What? Divorce? I was shocked. I will never agree to a divorce. Her expression shifted from joy to fear, as if she had fallen from heaven to hell in an instant. You kept gambling even when Logan was struggling, right? You kept borrowing money, putting the family in jeopardy. That's true, but I can't stay in a family where my wife puts gambling before her own son. No way. She finally burst into tears. I promise I'll never gamble again. Please forgive me, she begged. But he remained firm. Your gambling seems like an addiction. You need to see a psychiatrist and get long-term treatment. It's common for people to struggle with relapses during treatment. I'm not addicted. I can stop anytime. No, if this continues, we could all end up with nothing. I have to separate, not just for my own sake, but to stop putting more burden on Logan, my dad explained. I'll stop from tomorrow, she replied, seemingly not fully grasping the seriousness of her gambling problem. I was really worried about the amount of debt and her compulsive gambling. In return for paying off your debts, there won't be any division of assets, my dad declared. What? I can't agree to that, she protested. If you don't repay the debt, they might freeze your account, she went quiet. I never imagined coming home after a long time would lead to this situation. I felt so unsettled by my parents arguing. No, Dad, can't we hold off on talking about divorce? Maybe take some time to calm down and think things through, I suggested. I'm sorry, Logan, but that's not possible, he said calmly. I thought Dad might have rushed into talking about divorce out of frustration, but it seems like that's not what happened. After a tense lunch, I retreated to my room. I lay down on the bed, but I could still hear my parents arguing faintly. It wasn't a full-blown argument. Mom was shouting loudly, and Dad was responding firmly. Feeling overwhelmed by college and home, I eventually fell asleep out of sheer frustration. The next morning, Mom looked worn out, likely from crying all night. I had planned to stay home a bit longer, but the heavy atmosphere pushed me to leave early. Dad drove me to the airport. It turned out Mom didn't agree to the divorce during their argument yesterday. Logan, I'm sorry for causing so much trouble, she apologized to me. No, Mom, it's not your fault. Dad, thanks for supporting me through medical school. I'll start transferring allowance directly to your account from now on, so don't worry. Yeah, thanks, Dad. It really means a lot. I understand things are tough, but take care. I flew back to New York. The rest of the summer vacation flew by with work, but I couldn't stop worrying about my parents. A few months later, I learned that my mom finally agreed to the divorce. My dad's determination wore down her resistance. As they agreed, Dad took on her debts, and they didn't divide their assets in the divorce. I have mixed feelings about my parents splitting up, but it's not all bad. With the allowance Dad gives me, I've been able to reduce my workload and focus more on my studies. I've even had time to hang out with friends. My mom's side of the family told me that despite the divorce caused by her gambling, she returned to the slot machines every day and quickly accumulated more debt. Her family couldn't bail her out, so she reluctantly started working part-time. She's currently in therapy to